Your dog is staring at you right now. Not at the door, not at their bowl, not at the window, at you. And they have been doing it every single day since the moment they met you. Most owners see it and smile and move on. But a small number of people who watch this video all the way through are going to realize something today that will permanently rewrite the way they experience every moment they have ever shared with their dog. Because that look your dog gives you, that quiet, unblinking gaze that sometimes feels almost too intimate for an animal, is not what you think it is. It has never been what you think it is. And the truth behind it reaches so far back into history and so deep into biology that by the time you hear all of it, you will wonder how you ever looked at your dog the same way again. Stop whatever else you are doing. This one matters. You are sitting on your couch on a Tuesday evening, doing nothing remarkable. Maybe you are watching something. Maybe you are reading. Maybe you are just staring at the ceiling, letting your mind go wherever it wants to go. And at some point, you become aware of a feeling, the feeling that you are being watched. You look down, and there they are, your dog, completely still, eyes locked directly onto yours with an expression that carries a weight you cannot quite name. You laugh a little. You say something to them. You maybe reach out and scratch behind their ears, and then you go back to what you were doing. That moment happens in millions of homes every single day, and almost every person experiencing it is misreading it entirely. Here is what most people believe. The stare is a request. The dog wants food or a walk or attention or play. Dogs are smart animals, and they have learned that making eye contact with humans produces results. So the gaze is a trained behavior, a tool the dog has developed to communicate need. And honestly, that explanation makes a certain kind of sense. It is tidy, it is logical. It keeps the dog at a comfortable and comprehensible distance. An intelligent animal using a learned signal to get what it wants. Most people accept that explanation and never look further, but the chemistry refuses to cooperate with that story. Because if the gaze were purely transactional, if it were simply a learned signal with no deeper biological meaning, then what happens inside the bodies of both the dog and the owner during that gaze should be unremarkable, neutral, the kind of thing you would expect from any conditioned stimulus and response exchange. But that is not what researchers found when they actually measured it. And what they found instead changed the entire scientific conversation about what dogs actually are to us and what we actually are to them. In 2015, a team of researchers at Asabu University in Japan published a study in the journal Science that quietly rewrote what the world understood about the human and dog relationship. They brought dogs and their owners into a controlled environment. They allowed them to interact naturally without interference. And then they measured oxytocin levels in both the humans and the dogs before and after the interaction. Oxytocin is not a minor chemical. It is the neurological foundation of bonding between living creatures. It is what surges between a mother and her newborn child in the first moments of contact. It is what rises between two people in the earliest stages of deep love. It is what flows through the nervous system during moments of genuine and meaningful human connection. It is the chemistry of trust made physical inside the body. And what the researchers measured in that room in Japan was not what any of them expected to find. The owners who experienced the longest periods of mutual eye contact with their dogs showed the most dramatic surges in oxytocin, and the dogs showed exactly the same surge at exactly the same time, the same molecule, rising simultaneously in two entirely different species, locked in each other's gaze across a silence that apparently neither of them needed to fill with words. That is not a conditioned behavior. That is not a transactional signal. That is the neurochemistry of love running through a human and a dog in the same moment. And the weight of what that means has still not fully reached the people who need to hear it most. Here is where it gets interesting in a way that most owners never hear. When researchers who study infant attachment looked at the data from that study, they recognized something immediately. The biological loop that activated between the dogs and their owners during mutual gaze was the same loop that activates between human infants and their caregivers. The oxytocin feedback cycle that bonds a helpless child to the person responsible for their survival is the exact same cycle that runs between your dog and you when they hold your eyes. Your dog is not gazing at you the way one animal gazes at another. They are gazing at you the way a child looks at the person they trust completely with their entire existence, and they are doing it with a biological precision that took 15,000 years to develop. But the science gets stranger. Evolutionary biologists studying the domestication of dogs discovered something embedded in canine facial anatomy that does not exist in wolves. A small muscle positioned above the inner corner of the eye that allows dogs to raise their brow in a specific way. That movement makes the dog's eyes appear larger, more rounded, more infant-like. And that precise expression activates caregiving responses in human beings with an accuracy that is almost difficult to sit with once you understand it fully. Here is the part that should genuinely stop you. Dogs did not learn to make that face the way they learned to sit or stay. They evolved it. Over thousands of years of living at the edge of human settlements, the individual dogs whose facial expressions could reach into human bonding instincts and activate them were the ones who received protection and food and care. They survived, they reproduced, and they passed that facial architecture forward through every generation that followed. The eyes that your dog turns toward you today were sculpted by the survival pressures of living alongside your ancestors, and the instinct you feel when those eyes find yours was shaped in you by their ancestors. You were made for this exact exchange, both of you, across 15,000 years of shared history pointing toward one ordinary Tuesday evening on your couch. What is happening in that gaze is much deeper than most people have ever been allowed to understand. Research published in the journal Animal Cognition revealed that dogs process human facial expressions by looking first at the left side of the face. And that is precisely the same bias that human beings use when reading emotion in other human faces. Dogs did not develop this tendency by accident. They developed it because reading human emotional states with accuracy was the single most important survival skill their species possessed. A dog who could correctly interpret whether a human was safe or dangerous, calm or agitated, trustworthy or threatening, was a dog who could navigate the most complex social environment any non-human animal has ever had to live inside. And the primary tool they developed for that navigation was not their nose or their ears. It was their ability to read the human face, specifically the human eye. Your dog has been studying you with a depth of attention that most humans never extend to each other. And now here is where the emotional weight of everything you have just heard finally lands. When your dog holds your gaze, they are not performing a behavior at you. They are entering a state with you. A state that their entire biology was built to seek out. A state that tells their nervous system that the world is intelligible and safe, and that the most important creature in their existence is present and accounted for. Every long, quiet stare across the dinner table, every unblinking gaze in the low light of the evening, every time you looked up from whatever you were doing and found them already watching you with that expression you never quite had a word for. That was the full weight of 15,000 years of coevolution arriving in a single moment. That was an animal shaped by history to do one thing better than any other creature on Earth: to see you, to know you, to choose you again in every small and unremarkable moment of the only life they will ever have. Now here is the warning that you need to hear before this video ends. If a dog who has always made eye contact with you begins to avoid your gaze and the change is sudden rather than gradual, do not dismiss it. Avoidance of eye contact in a dog who previously sought it can indicate physical pain, particularly in the head, neck, and eye area. It appears in dogs experiencing the early stages of cognitive decline, and it is one of the first behavioral signals in dogs who have experienced something that disrupted their sense of safety in their relationship with their owner. The gaze is not just a sweet habit, it is a living signal of your dog's internal world. When it disappears without explanation, something has shifted inside them. Take it seriously. Here is the practical truth you can carry with you from today forward. The bond between you and your dog is not built in the dramatic moments. It is built in the 3 seconds where you hold their gaze and you do not look away first, where you sit with the quiet intensity of what they are offering you and you offer something back. What you are doing in that moment is completing a neurochemical loop that has been running between humans and dogs since the beginning of recorded history. You are giving their nervous system the answer it is always searching for. And that answer is not a word or a gesture or a reward. It is simply your eyes staying on theirs long enough for everything that both of your species were built to feel in that moment to do exactly what it was always meant to do. The next time your dog looks at you, do not look away first. Let it last 3 seconds longer than feels comfortable, because what they are giving you in that gaze is not a request. It is a declaration. It has always been a declaration, and it has always deserved an answer.